Hey, what's up YouTube? Welcome to another video. Don't be fooled by this random clip that I dug up in my hard drive. It's indeed wet and rainy here in Vancouver. It's transitioning into winter season and there's not so much riding outside right now. Anyways, in today's video, I'm going to talk to you guys about a bike that I got off Facebook Marketplace as a fixer-upper, and it had some pretty interesting problems with it. So at first inspection, everything seems pretty decent about the Cervelo. It's in relatively good condition. The bar tape is a bit scruffy. There's a couple of marks on the actual shifters, but in terms of components, it has everything that you need to have a working bike minus the rear derailleur. But things start to get a bit more iffy when you look at the back end, specifically the rear seat stay on the right side of the frame. There's two cracks on the drive side seat stay, and repairing this is going to be the first order of business for me. I'm going to be using this DIY carbon fiber repair kit from Predator Cycling, which I've bought off of Amazon, and I've used this thing in the past before and it's worked pretty well. The kit comes with everything you need to do your carbon fiber repair. So it has some epoxy and some hardener, which is pretty obvious what you use it for, some tape, which is used at the end, some containers to pour the hardener in. This is the actual carbon fiber in that cardboard tube, some alcohol wipes to clean the area, some paint brushes to paint the epoxy and hardener onto the fiber, and some gloves to protect your hands, and then sandpaper to sand down the area. The first step is to sand down the area which you're going to be applying the repair to. It's important to get down to the bare carbon in the area that you want to apply the repair to. You can see here the bare carbon, and the seat stay paint is pretty hard to get through because it's built to be tough, but I was pretty happy with how much sanding I was able to get done here. The next step is to cut the carbon into the shapes that I need in order to lay it up on the frame. Because the carbon is woven into a grid-like pattern, it's important to lay it up at an offset of 45 degrees every layer, just to increase the strength of the actual repair. And then typically you would do a final layer at the end just as an aesthetic layer to make things look good. So that's what I'm doing right now when I'm cutting. I'm just measuring it against the frame and cutting it accordingly and making sure that I'm doing these 45-degree offsets. Then, before things start getting messy when you mix the resin together, I like to organize my station a bit. So on the top you can see I have 3 strips, and that's the order in which I'm going to be applying those strips on the top repair. And you can see the 45-degree offset is the one on the left, then the middle one is just the regular offset, and then the one on the right is the final aesthetic layer. Once you're all ready, the next step is to mix the resin. So it requires a 1 to 3.5 mass ratio. So you can see once I get to 21 grams, I reset my scale and pour in 6 grams of hardener. And then you just mix it up with the paintbrush, which they provide, and it heats up a bit. And once it's heated up a bit, you're ready to start applying. The first step is to apply a bit of the mixture onto the actual frame itself at the place where you're going to be applying the repair. Then you also apply some onto the actual carbon fiber strips themselves before putting them onto the frame. The strips are a bit hard to work with because they're a bit slippery when they've got the resin on them. You can see I'm applying the first one here at a 45-degree angle. You'll notice the corner is peeling a bit. Don't worry, I fixed that and didn't record it on camera. Then this is the second layer applied at just a 0-degree offset, and then a third layer applied at a 45-degree offset. And once again, the corner peeling a bit, but I fixed that off camera. The next step is to apply the compression tape. The idea is this kind of squeezes all the excess epoxy out, and it's also a heat activated tape, so when you heat it up, it actually shrinks and squeezes even more epoxy out. But you can see it's I have taken off my gloves because it was kind of hard to work with them on. Probably not the greatest for your skin, and I would not advise doing this. Once the top repair was done, I did the exact same steps on the bottom repair, and then I taped it up and used a blow dryer to heat both of the taped areas up to apply more compression. I actually forgot to take a video of myself unraveling the compression tape, but this is what it looked like afterwards. The top repair went really well. I was happy with how things went. There was a couple stray fibers kind of at the bottom, which I could have cleaned up, but they're just an aesthetic thing. The bottom repair, I was having a bit of trouble with the last layer, and it ended up tenting a bit, which isn't ideal, but it's the last layer, and it was mainly to be an aesthetic layer anyway, so I'm not too worried about it. The real test will be once I finish building up the bike and get it out on the road to see if this repair holds up. I had to buy and install a new rear derailleur hanger since the old one had snapped, and also a new rear derailleur since the bike didn't come with one. I found one on Facebook Marketplace for relatively cheap. Then I had to remove the old rear derailleur cable and install a new one. This is an internally routed frame, so I was a bit skeptical about how hard it was going to be to actually install the new rear derailleur cable. Turns out it was quite easy. The area in the bottom bracket just unscrewed, and the cable actually came out of there with very little guidance from myself. And then I was afraid for the last section on the rear seat stay how it would go, because it's kind of narrow. But I fed it through and it seemed to pop out of the hole magically without any guidance on my part. After that, the only thing left to do was cut the chain down to the correct size and then adjust the front and rear derailleur, and then I was ready to ride. Once I was finished building, I took the bike out on a bit of a test ride just to see how the carbon repair would do. I started off by riding up a hill at a pretty low cadence, but putting reasonable amount of power into the pedals. I was also trying to hit potholes on my way, something which I normally try to avoid doing. I also tried some higher speed tests, so just rolling downhill, hitting potholes on the way, and also taking it off curbs, not only going down them, but also going up them, and it seemed to go pretty well. In fact, it went so well that my camera couldn't handle the impact and it ended up tilting down a bit, so the last couple shots weren't as good as they could be. But overall, I'm pretty happy with the results. I'm kind of debating whether or not I want to sell this bike on Facebook Marketplace, or if I should just keep it for myself and use it as a rainy day bike and save the fretworks for those nice summer days. It is also nice having a 105 rim brake bike because the components are so cheap and so easy to find if you need to replace anything. And I kind of forgot how good the metal braking surface is on just stock alloy rims compared to any carbon braking surface. Anyways, let me know what you guys thought of the video, if you learned anything, if you have any questions. If you have a damaged frame, I'd highly recommend trying out the Predator cycling approach. I'm not an expert by any means, so it's at your own risk, but it turned out pretty well for me, and I'm still alive.